August 7th, 1942, 6:14 a.m., off the northern coast of Guadalcanal. The sea is unnaturally still. Then, without warning, the horizon explodes. Naval guns roar from American cruisers hidden in the morning haze. Shells scream overhead and slam into the shoreline, tearing apart palm trees and sending columns of black earth skyward. The jungle, thick and silent just seconds before, suddenly convulses with fire. On the beaches below, Japanese construction crews freeze. They weren't supposed to see this. Private First Class Masao Tanaka drops his shovel, staring out toward the ocean as the sky itself seems to flash. He had arrived weeks earlier with a simple assignment: help build an airfield. No combat, no enemy. Command had assured them this island was secure. Now the ground shakes beneath his feet. Another explosion, closer this time, rips through a half-built bunker. Men scatter, some diving into shallow trenches, others simply standing in disbelief. There are no defensive lines here, no artillery positions ready to respond, only engineers, laborers, men who were told this was far from the front. And then they see them. Dark shapes emerge from the mist, dozens of landing craft cutting through the surf. American Marines packed tightly inside, rifles ready, faces set. The rams drop, boots hit water. The invasion has begun. Further inland, Captain Kanai Monzen of the Imperial Japanese Navy watches through binoculars, his expression tightening. This wasn't supposed to happen. Intelligence had reported Allied movements elsewhere. The Americans weren't ready for a full-scale offensive. Not here, not now. Yet, here they are. Retreat into the jungle, he orders sharply. Regroup inland. There's no hesitation, no dramatic last stand. The Japanese forces on Guadalcanal are not equipped for it. Within minutes, they begin to vanish, melting into the dense green wall behind the beaches. It's a calculated withdrawal, but also a necessary one. Because out there, in the surf, thousands more Marines are coming. By mid-morning, the beachhead belongs to the United States. Marines from the 1st Marine Division under Major General Alexander Vandegrift move inland cautiously. Their boots sink into the wet sand, then into thick mud as they push toward the tree line. The jungle looms ahead, dark, tangled, impenetrable. You can almost feel it, the humidity pressing against your skin, the air heavy, unmoving. It smells alive. Rotting vegetation, damp earth, something else harder to place. And somewhere inside that jungle, the enemy is waiting. The Marines advance with discipline, rifles raised, eyes scanning every shadow. But there's no immediate resistance, no gunfire, no ambush, just silence. It's unsettling. Corporal John Basilone wipes sweat from his brow, his uniform already soaked through. Too easy, someone mutters nearby. Too easy. By late afternoon, they reach the prize, the half-finished airfield the Japanese had been building. Bulldozers sit abandoned, fuel drums lie scattered, tools are left exactly where they were dropped hours earlier. The Americans quickly seize it. They rename it Henderson Field. And just like that, what began as a surprise attack becomes something far more dangerous, a foothold. But the Japanese are not gone. They're watching. From deep within the jungle, hidden beneath layers of vines and shadow, survivors of the initial bombardment regroup. Officers gather scattered units, piecing together fragments of command. Messages are sent, urgent, desperate. Reinforcements must come. Because this island, this insignificant, forgotten island, is no longer quiet. Night falls quickly in the tropics, and with it, something changes. The jungle comes alive. Insects scream in deafening waves, leaves rustle where nothing can be seen. The darkness isn't just dark, it's absolute, the kind that swallows shapes whole. Marines dig shallow foxholes around Henderson Field, setting up perimeter defenses. They light cigarettes, whispered to each other, trying to steady their nerves. Then, a sound. Faint at first. Movement in the trees. A branch snapping somewhere beyond the wire. Every head turns, every rifle lifts, but there's nothing there. Or is there? Because deep in that jungle, Japanese forces are already moving. They know the terrain, they know the darkness, and most importantly, they know something the Americans are just beginning to realize. This island is not just a battlefield, it's a living thing, and it's about to turn against everyone who steps foot on it. August 12, 1942, 2:37 a.m., perimeter line, Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The first shot cracks through the darkness like a whip, then another, then all at once the night erupts. Machine guns chatter in violent bursts, tracers slicing through the black jungle like burning threads. Marines scramble from their foxholes, half awake, grabbing rifles, shouting over the chaos. Somewhere along the perimeter, someone screams. The Japanese have come back. They don't attack like the Americans expected. There's no slow advance, no probing fire, no hesitation. They come fast, close, almost invisible until they're already there. Figures burst out of the tree line, shadows moving at full speed, bayonets fixed, voices rising into chilling war cries that cut through the gunfire. It's sudden, overwhelming, personal. You can almost feel the shock ripple through the Marine lines. This isn't a distant firefight. This is hand-to-hand. Private First Class Robert Leckie grips his rifle as a shape lunges towards him through the smoke. There's no time to think, only to react. A flash of steel, a shot fired at point-blank range. The recoil slams into his shoulder as the figure collapses just feet away. And then another replaces him, and another. The jungle keeps sending them. This is the first major counterattack, led by Colonel Kiyonao Ichiki, a man who believed the Americans on Guadalcanal were weak, unprepared. His orders were clear: strike fast, overwhelm them, drive them back into the sea. But Ichiki made a fatal mistake. He underestimated them. The fighting intensifies along what will later be known as the Tenaru River Line. American machine gun teams dig in, their weapons glowing red-hot as they fire into waves of charging Japanese infantry. The noise is relentless: gunfire, explosions, shouting, the sharp metallic clatter of spent casings hitting the ground. The smell of cordite fills the air, mixed with something else now, something heavier. The Japanese keep coming, again and again. Some fall before reaching the lines, others make it through, leaping into trenches, engaging in brutal close combat. Bayonets clash, rifles become clubs, men grapple in the mud, fighting for inches of ground that no one can even see clearly in the darkness. It's chaos, raw, violent, unforgiving. But slowly, inevitably, the attack begins to break. American firepower holds, and as the first light of dawn creeps over the battlefield, the truth reveals itself. Bodies, everywhere, dozens, then hundreds. The ground near the river is littered with fallen Japanese soldiers, their assault shattered against the Marine defenses. Colonel Ichiki himself lies among them, his gamble turned into catastrophe. For the Americans, it's a victory, but it doesn't feel like one, because something else is happening, something quieter, something far more dangerous. By midday, the heat becomes unbearable.
The jungle doesn't just surround them, it presses in. The air feels thick, almost liquid. Sweat doesn't evaporate, it clings. Clothes stay wet. Skin begins to rot beneath layers of grime and humidity. You can't escape it. There is no relief. And then the sickness starts. At first it's subtle, a headache, a fever, a wave of exhaustion that doesn't make sense. Then it worsens. Malaria, dysentery, skin infections that spread like fire. Men begin collapsing without warning, some shaking violently, others too weak to even stand. The medical tents fill faster than the front lines. The enemy is no longer just out there, it's inside them. Corporal Eugene Sledge watches as a fellow Marine is carried past him, barely conscious, his body burning with fever. There's no glory here, no heroics, just survival. Day by day, hour by hour. And still, the Japanese don't stop. At night, they return, not always in full assaults like before, sometimes just whispers in the dark, a single shot, a sudden scream, a knife in the shadows. Sleep becomes impossible. Every rustle could be death. Every shadow could be watching. The Marines begin to understand something that no briefing could have prepared them for. This isn't a traditional battlefield. There are no clear lines, no safe zones. The jungle erases all of that. Even the ground itself turns against them. Rain falls in sudden, violent bursts, transforming trails into rivers of mud. Equipment sinks, movement slows, vehicles become useless, supply lines falter, and food starts running low. Out at sea, Japanese naval forces begin their nightly runs, fast destroyers racing down what the Americans will call the Tokyo Express. Under cover of darkness, they deliver fresh troops, weapons, and supplies to the island. Each night, the enemy grows stronger again. Each day, the Marines grow weaker. General Vandegrift knows what this means. This battle isn't over. It's just beginning. And somewhere deep in the jungle, new Japanese commanders arrive, men who won't make the same mistake as Ichiki, men who will adapt, men who understand patience, because the next phase won't be a reckless charge. It will be something far worse, a slow, relentless pressure from all sides. And as the days stretch into weeks, one question begins to take hold in every Marine's mind. How do you fight an enemy you can't even see? September 12, 1942, 9:46 p.m., south of Henderson Field, later known as Bloody Ridge, Guadalcanal. The jungle is holding its breath. No wind, no insects, no sound at all. Captain Merritt Red Mike stands at the crest of a narrow ridge, his silhouette barely visible against the night sky. Around him, his raiders and paramarines lie low in shallow, hastily dug positions, rifles ready, eyes locked on the black void below. They've been waiting, and now it's coming. At first, it's just a tremor in the darkness, then movement. A faint rustling spreading across the jungle floor like something alive, too coordinated to be animals, too quiet to be random. Edson doesn't need confirmation. They're here, he mutters. The Japanese assault begins without warning. A sudden eruption of gunfire shatters the silence, followed by a surge of voices rising in unison. Hundreds of soldiers from General Kiyotake Kawaguchi's brigade charge up the ridge, their forms barely visible in the darkness, their momentum terrifying. This is no reckless attack. This is deliberate, coordinated, relentless. The first wave slams into the Marine line. Rifles crack, machine guns roar to life. The ridge flashes with bursts of light as both sides unleash everything they have. Tracers cut through the darkness, illuminating brief, horrifying glimpses, faces, weapons, bodies falling. You can almost feel the ground shaking beneath the weight of the charge. Private Anthony Casamento grips his Browning automatic rifle, firing in controlled bursts down the slope. The recoil pounds against him, but he doesn't stop. He can't, because they keep coming, again and again. The Japanese press forward with terrifying discipline. They don't scatter under fire, they push through it. Some fall, but others climb over them, advancing step by step, closing the distance. Grenades explode along the ridge, sending dirt and fragments into the air. Marines shout orders, trying to hold the line, but the pressure is constant, unyielding. And then, a breakthrough. On the left flank, Japanese forces find a gap. They pour through it. Suddenly, the fighting isn't just in front of the Marines, it's among them, close, confused, deadly. Edson reacts instantly. "Fall back to the secondary line," he shouts. It's a dangerous move, giving ground in the middle of a night assault, but there's no choice. Staying here means being overrun. The Marines begin a fighting withdrawal, step by step, dragging wounded, firing as they move. The ridge is slipping. By midnight, the situation is critical. Japanese forces have pushed dangerously close to Henderson Field. The airstrip, the heart of the entire American position, lies just behind the Marines' last defensive line. If it falls, everything falls. Edson knows this, and so do the Japanese. The second wave comes harder, more organized, more aggressive. They strike the center of the line, aiming to break it completely. The noise is deafening. Gunfire, explosions, screams blending into a single continuous roar. Visibility is almost zero. Men fire at shadows, at movement, at anything that feels wrong. You can almost feel the confusion, the fear, the exhaustion. Sergeant Clyde Thomason rallies a group of Marines near the crest, shouting over the chaos, directing fire, holding the line with sheer force of will. Around him, men are dropping, some wounded, some worse, but the position holds, barely. At one point, the Japanese get so close that Marines resort to throwing rocks when ammunition runs low. Rocks, anything to keep them back. And then, something shifts. American artillery opens up. Behind the ridge, batteries begin firing point-blank into the advancing Japanese formations. Shells scream overhead and explode along the slopes, tearing apart entire groups in seconds. The explosions light up the battlefield in brief, violent flashes, revealing just how close the enemy has come. Too close. The Japanese hesitate, just for a moment, but it's enough. Edson seizes it. "Hold this line," he roars, and they do. Hour by hour, the attacks lose momentum. The charges become less coordinated. The numbers begin to thin. By the early hours of the morning, the relentless pressure finally starts to fade. Not completely, but enough. As dawn breaks, the ridge reveals its cost. Bodies cover the slopes, Japanese soldiers lying where they fell, their assault halted just short of its objective. The ground is torn apart, churned into mud and blood. The Marines are still there, exhausted, shaken, but alive. The Battle of Edson's Ridge is over, and it's a turning point. General Kawaguchi's offensive has failed. Henderson Field remains in American hands, and for the first time since the landings, something changes. The Japanese aren't just fighting to win anymore.
They're fighting to recover. But victory comes at a price, because the jungle isn't done yet, not even close. The Marines have held the line, but they're weaker now, more exposed, and the enemy is learning. Far out at sea, new Japanese plans are already in motion. Larger forces, heavier attacks, a final push to take back what was lost. And this time, it won't just come from the jungle. It will come from the sky, from the sea, from everywhere at once.
October 14th, 1942, 1:32 a.m., Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The first shell lands without warning. A deafening crack splits the night, and then the earth erupts. Within seconds, the entire airfield is engulfed in chaos. Japanese battleships, Kongo and Haruna, have slipped through the darkness undetected. Now, from miles offshore, they unleash a devastating bombardment. Massive 14-inch shells arc through the sky, invisible until impact, each one detonating with catastrophic force. Runways shatter, fuel dumps explode, aircraft are torn apart where they sit. Marine pilots dive for cover as fragments rip through tents and revetments. Mechanics scramble in the dark, trying to save anything that can still fly, but it's impossible. This isn't an attack. It's annihilation. You can almost feel the shock wave in your chest, the ground trembling beneath you, the sky flashing over and over again. For nearly an hour, the bombardment continues, relentless, precise, merciless. By the time it stops, Henderson Field is barely recognizable. Dozens of aircraft destroyed, runways cratered beyond use, supplies burning in scattered infernos across the field. And then, silence. But it doesn't last. At first light, they come. Japanese bombers appear overhead, followed by fighter escorts. With the airfield crippled, American resistance is minimal. Bombs fall freely, pounding what little remains. The sky belongs to Japan now. On the ground, Marines and Seabees move immediately. There's no time to process what just happened, no time to rest, because if Henderson Field stays down, the island is lost. Bulldozers roar to life. Men with shovels fill craters by hand. Wreckage is dragged aside, sometimes still smoldering. Every second matters. Commander William Bull Halsey, now in charge of Allied naval forces in the South Pacific, understands the stakes. Reinforcements are coming, but they won't arrive in time if the airfield can't operate. Everything depends on getting planes back in the air. And somehow, they do it. By mid-afternoon, against all odds, a portion of the runway is operational again. Damaged aircraft that can still fly are patched together, bullet holes covered, engines barely holding. Pilots climb in without hesitation. They take off from a field that was nearly destroyed just hours earlier, and they head straight into combat. The Cactus Air Force, as it's now known, launches desperate sorties against incoming Japanese forces. They're outnumbered, outgunned, but they fight anyway, because there's no alternative. Meanwhile, out at sea, the situation grows even more dangerous. Japanese naval forces are preparing for something bigger, a full-scale attempt to retake Guadalcanal. The Americans know it's coming. They just don't know when. October 25th, 1942. The tension finally breaks. In the waters north of Guadalcanal, two massive fleets converge. Aircraft carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, all moving toward a single point. The Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands begins. From the decks of American carriers like the USS Enterprise, pilots launch into the sky, engines roaring, propellers slicing through the humid air. Below them, the ocean stretches endlessly, hiding fleets that are about to collide. The first contacts are made. Enemy carriers spotted, distance closing. Then, attack. Dive bombers scream downward, releasing their payloads at the last possible second. Torpedo planes skim the surface, closing in under heavy fire. Anti-aircraft guns fill the sky with explosions. It's chaos, pure aerial chaos. American forces take heavy losses. The USS Hornet is hit multiple times, crippled and eventually abandoned. Fires rage across its decks as the crew fights to save what they can. But the Japanese don't escape unscathed. Their carriers are damaged, their aircraft losses mount, and most importantly, their experienced pilots are not easily replaced. That's the difference. For Japan, every loss hurts more. Every downed pilot is a veteran gone forever. For the Americans, replacements are already in training. Factories are producing more planes, more ships, more everything. The balance is shifting, slowly but undeniably. Back on Guadalcanal, the jungle waits. The bombardments have weakened the Americans. The naval battles have stretched both sides thin. And yet, the island remains contested because neither side is willing to let go. The Japanese prepare one final massive ground offensive. More troops, more artillery, more coordination than ever before. This will be the deciding blow, the moment that decides everything. And as the Marines dig in once more, exhausted and worn down, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. They're not just fighting the enemy anymore. They're fighting time, because the jungle is still there, watching, waiting, and it's about to take its greatest toll yet. November 8th, 1942, 5:12 a.m., deep jungle, west of Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. There are no gunshots this morning, no explosions, no shouting, just silence. Private Kenji Sato stumbles forward, his boots sinking into the wet earth. Each step feels heavier than the last. His uniform hangs loosely now, soaked, torn, clinging to a body that has already begun to waste. He hasn't eaten properly in days, maybe longer. Time doesn't make sense anymore. Around him, what remains of his unit moves in fragments, no formation, no structure. Just men trying to keep moving. The orders had been clear: advance, attack, retake the airfield. But something went wrong.
Lieutenant General Harukichi Hyakutake's grand offensive, meant to crush the American defenses once and for all, has failed. Badly. The jungle swallowed it. Units became separated in the dense terrain. Maps proved useless. Trails vanished into thick vegetation. Communication broke down. Supplies never reached the front lines. And the Americans were ready. Machine guns cut down advancing troops. Artillery shattered formations before they could even organize. And those who survived found themselves stranded. Now, days later, the survivors are still out here, lost, hungry, dying. Sato pauses, leaning against a tree for support. His vision blurs, the world tilts slightly. Somewhere nearby, a man collapses, but no one stops to help. They can't, because everyone is barely holding on. The jungle offers nothing, no food, no clean water. Only decay. Men begin eating whatever they can find, roots, leaves, insects, anything. Some don't even have the strength for that. Disease spreads faster than bullets ever did. Malaria returns. Dysentery weakens what little strength remains. Infections fester without treatment. And still, there's no way out. Back near the American lines, the Marines begin to notice something strange. The attacks have stopped. For days there had been constant pressure, probing assaults, sniper fire, movement in the jungle. Now, nothing. It feels wrong. Corporal John Basilone scans the tree line, his finger resting lightly on the trigger. Too quiet, he mutters. No one disagrees. Patrols are sent out cautiously, small groups moving slowly, eyes scanning every shadow. What they find is something no one expected. At first, it's just a body, then another, then dozens.
Japanese soldiers lying where they fell, not from gunfire, but from exhaustion, from starvation, from disease. Some are still alive, barely. One Marine kneels beside a young Japanese soldier, offering him water. His hands tremble as he tries to drink, his eyes hollow, unfocused. For a moment, the ward disappears. There's no enemy here, just two human beings, one helping the other survive a little longer. But moments like that don't last, because the reality is unavoidable. The Japanese offensive has collapsed, not just tactically, completely. Entire units have ceased to exist, command structures have disintegrated, survivors are scattered across miles of jungle with no coordination, no supplies, and no chance of regrouping. It's not a retreat, it's a slow, quiet disappearance. General Hyakutake receives the reports. What remains of his forces is no longer capable of offensive action. The decision is made: withdraw. Not because they want to, but because there is nothing left to fight with. The Tokyo Express still runs at night, but now, instead of delivering reinforcements, it begins evacuating the wounded, the sick, the dying. Back at Henderson Field, the Marines don't celebrate. Not really, because they've seen what this island does to everyone. Corporal Eugene Sledge writes later that Guadalcanal wasn't just a battle. It was something else, something darker. You can almost feel it lingering in the air, the weight of everything that's happened here. The jungle didn't just fight, it consumed. And now, it's quiet again. But this time, the silence means something different. The fighting is ending. The island is finally being decided. And yet, one question remains, one that no one on either side can fully answer. Was this victory or just survival? Because for those who lived through Guadalcanal, nothing would ever feel the same again.